cover the carriers of passengers today for Texas truck accident law. So we're going to kind of dive into for hire versus private motor carriers. Excellent topic. Going to really enjoy it. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are beginning or continuing our board sessions like we always do right about this time. Today we're going to talk about Texas truck accident law. We are going to focus on carriers of passengers. So let's go ahead and get started. The primary thing that you need to understand about this is that we're going to be covering for hire versus private carriers. Okay, I covered this earlier in another vlog, the difference between the two, and the fact that for hire carriers or motor carriers are basically those who are transporting the goods of another, versus private is you are transporting usually your own cargo or your own load. Today we're going to focus on, like I said, carriers that deal specifically with passengers. However, I want to throw in a brief note that if you are dealing with an interstate truck accident case, or you're dealing with just with interstate trucking requirements in general, whether the person or whether the motor carrier is transporting passengers or whether they're transporting loads of product, the hours of service remain the same for both types of carriers. All right, so with no further ado, let's get started. Historically, only for hire carriers with vehicles designed to transport more than 15 passengers, including the driver, were regulated by the FMCSA predecessors. Okay, now we are dealing with a time when private motor carriers of passengers, or PMCPs, are subject to the FMCSA on January 1st, 1995, starting on that date. These groups are separated into two groups, which are the business PMCMPs and the non-business PMCMPs. These motor carriers are operating vehicles designed or used to transport 9 to 15 passengers, including the driver, for compensation. And this became subject to regulatory standards on February 12, 2001. A brief jump back, we're going to go to for hire carriers. Now, in order to be classified as a for hire carrier, you have to adhere to three elements. Those elements are: the motor carrier provides interstate transportation of passengers for a commercial purpose. Number two, the motor carrier is compensated either directly or indirectly for the transportation service provided. And three, transportation service is generally available to the public at large. Now, some examples of this would be intercity bus service, such as Metro, charter bus service, canoe rental company, bus service, or a hotel bus service. We're going to move right along to the business PMCPs. As we said before, PMCP stands for private motor carriers of passengers. So business private motor carriers of passengers must provide private interstate and or intrastate transportation of passengers in the furtherance of a commercial purpose. Okay, examples of this include, but are not limited to, a company bus transporting employees, professional musicians using buses for concert tours, general commercial buses that are generally speaking for public use are not PMCPs. These are generally considered for hire and are subject to the federal motor carrier safety regulations. There are some exemptions for the business PMCPs. They don't generally have to abide by the minimum levels of financial responsibility. The road test requirements of Part 391 in the FMCSRs, they don't have to abide by that. And these business PMCPs are regulated, generally speaking, by the statutes of 382, 383, 390 to 396, and the partial qualifications of drivers in 391. The last thing we're going to talk about is the non-business PMCMPs. These provide private interstate and or intrastate transportation of passengers that is not in furtherance of a commercial purpose. So if we jump back, you see the main difference between business PMCPs and non-business PMCPs is that this one is not in the furtherance of a commercial purpose, and these are in the furtherance of a commercial purpose. It makes sense after all. If you think about it. In furtherance of a commercial purpose, it's business. Non-business, it's not in furtherance of a commercial purpose. Right? That's the main difference between those two. So, examples of a non-business PMCP would be churches, private schools, scout groups, and or other charitable organizations that may purchase or lease buses for the private transportation of their respective groups. Now, there is a little snippet there that charter bus services intended to make a profit are not considered non-business PMCPs. They are considered for-hire carriers, right? I'm going to say that one more time. Now, we're talking about non-business PMCPs. We already said that this is basically a carrier that is not in furtherance of a commercial purpose, all right? And we went down the examples that a church could be an example of a non-business PMCP. However, if the church or a private school or a scout group or a charitable organization has charter bus services that are intended to make a profit on the side, that is not considered a non-business PMCP. That is considered a for-hire carrier. And if it is a for-hire carrier, then it has to meet these three purposes. The interstate transportation of passengers for a commercial purpose, the motor carrier is compensated for the transportation service provided, and the transportation service is generally available to the public at large. All right? The exemptions for a non-business PMCP would be that they are exempt from minimal levels of financial responsibility found in the FMCSRs. They are exempt from subparts C, D, F of 391, which is the qualifications of drivers, and most paperwork and record-keeping requirements of parts 390 to 391 and 395 and 396. Once again, this is the Big Rig Bull Texas Truck Accident Lawyer Reshard Alexander talking to you and wrapping it up about the carriers of passengers today. I hope you have a blessed day, and I will see you again tomorrow.